know it's our job to help this guy and everything, but I think this guy's a lost cause. He's obviously made up his mind. Why don't we just cut our losses and get out of here?
Oh, I have some good news for everyone. I have some very, very good news. Now, I said I wasn't gonna do another video on Star Wars, and then I did another video, and then here is another video. And this is after this channel, for how long it's been going on, had only ever done 2 Star Wars videos total. And that's because, as I said in those few videos that I did do on Star Wars, it's just a miserable thing to be a part of. There's nothing fun anymore, and there's no sense of community anymore. But that appears to be changing finally, and that's why I'm doing another video. Something is changing with Star Wars. Something is shifting in the fan base again, and what is shifting is the fan base is united again. The fan base is united over Star Wars The Acolyte. And before, don't click off. I have to show you that this is serious. Like, this, something really, really big is changing. Obviously, and I said this in the last video, there was going to be hate against The Acolyte. There is hate against everything Disney Star Wars. There are fans who are very, very discontented over it. But The Acolyte is something very different, because we're not just seeing the usual channels yell about Star Wars The Acolyte. No. The controversy over Star Wars The Acolyte has gone mainstream. Jeremy Johns, like movie YouTube reviewer, he's been doing it for years. He has criticized The Acolyte. The other day I saw Moist Critical did a video about how terrible The Acolyte is. But even more importantly than that, the Star Wars Reddit, the Star Wars subreddit, has come out in full force against Star Wars The Acolyte. I gotta show you this. That Reddit is like a shill hole for all of this stuff. Reddit will love anything you do for Star Wars. Reddit, the Star Wars Reddit, is lambasting The Acolyte. Just look at some of these comments. I will have them pulled up for you on the video. But on Reddit Star Wars, one day ago, a user asked, "What is so bad about The Acolyte? Seriously, I saw a bunch of people bashing it, but I don't get it. The show is decent." And he got over 3,000 responses. And the first one is the joke, the power of one, the power of two, the power of many. I hate how the show is making me acknowledge this criticism, because I really don't like to badmouth children, but my gosh, these child actors were horribly miscast and are so bad it's distracting, like young Jaden Smith bad. Overall, I found almost all of the acting to be poor when that's the case. Usually the fault of the directors and not the actors themselves. Just look at Hayden. I'll probably try again to finish the series after the episodes air, but at the moment I don't have the patience to get through episode 3. Another comment, regardless of all the woke, anti-woke nonsense, it's just poorly written and poorly acted. The premise is interesting, but executed badly. Dialogue sucks. The protagonist's sisters can't act and are not compelling characters at all. Soul is the most interesting actor so far, and he hasn't been given enough to work with. It comes across as amateur fanfic all around. And this is the official Star Wars subreddit, mind you. Another comment, dialogue and performances are a little rough. The singing witches were especially bad. The concept is great. Debatable. But it plays like a children's show, pretending to be for grown-ups. Maybe it is. So, as you can see, that is the official Star Wars subreddit where people are lambashing Star Wars The Acolyte. And it's not just the official Star Wars subreddit. Once again, I've mentioned that on YouTube, even the mainstream channels and for commentary and critics have not been positive about it. But look at the Star Wars Instagram account, and they've been posting advertisements for The Acolytes day and night, and they are just getting lambasted for it every time. Let's check it out here. Now, just look at all these posts I'm about to show you. Here's the last one. Are you ready? And then it has 19,000 likes and 1,000 comments. And let's see the top comments. Fire Kathleen Kennedy button. The show is a disgrace to the Star Wars lore. 15% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. Start listening to the fans. 2,000 likes. It's impossible for me to connect with the Acolyte series. The power of cringe. The power of lame. The show is actually good button. It only got 78 likes. Did you guys know that canonically, Soul is the strongest Jedi who ever existed? He has the massive strength to pick up this entire show and carry it on his back. Okay, let's see some others. There's a new poster for the Acolyte with 50,000 likes, almost 4,000 comments. Listen to your fans, please. The fire Kathleen Kennedy button again. You can continue to post 10,000 times a day. Your series remains bad. The power of cringe. Twice the budget, double the fall.
Good. Twice the pride, double the fall.
Boycotting Acolyte, 10,000 likes. Delete this show. Nobody cares. You literally ruined Star Wars, 3,000 likes. This is another comment. As an unbiased person and a person who gives things a try before giving an opinion, this is easily one of, if not the worst Star Wars content ever made. And even if you take away the Star Wars label, it is awful. It's sad what Disney is doing to Star Wars. George, we need you. So, as you can see, the hate for the Acolyte is just everywhere. It's not just a niche group of people on YouTube. Everyone despises this show. And going to Rotten Tomatoes, which is now at 14%, if I'm not mistaken, with the Acolyte. Once again, look up what they did with, let's say, Ahsoka. Let's look up Ahsoka. Now, there's been controversy over everything that they've released for Disney Star Wars, and so, of course, Rotten Tomatoes scores are going to be lower. But Ahsoka still got 66% audience score, and so that's still technically fresh. The Acolyte has gotten 14%, and as I understand, a whole lot more criticism. And regarding the whole thing about review bombing, though, when people dislike something and really, really feel strongly about it, of course they're going to go to where they feel that they can be heard about it and give their opinion. And you have to remember that Rotten Tomatoes has already made it less accessible to leave a review. That's what they did when Captain Marvel came out. And so people who are actually verified Rotten Tomatoes users are lambasting this show. And as you can see, it's not just a fringe group on the internet that's doing it. Nobody likes this show. It has literally brought the Star Wars fan base back together again after years and years and years of polarization and arguing and just not being together in anything. Everybody agrees that The Acolyte is a terrible show.
You are beaten. It is useless to resist. Don't let yourself be destroyed as Obi-Wan did.
And that is what is bringing me back to Star Wars all of a sudden, at least the conversation around it, because this entire time it's like it's going to be the regular group of people who criticize it, the regular group of people who praise it, and Disney's just going to do the same thing over and over again. But this, I'm seeing that no, everybody is united on hating The Acolyte, and I want to explore why that is. Is it because the show is badly made? Well, yes, and I would argue from what I've seen of it, it's the worst thing that they've produced so far. But I also think that what's happening is that The Acolyte doesn't have any sort of character that people feel a nostalgia for, that is attaching, giving people this emotional attachment to it. For example, I did not think Ahsoka was a good show at all, but a lot of people are attached to the universe of the Clone Wars and Hayden Christensen and Darth Vader and the Ahsoka character herself. And I think that and using things with similar Star Wars imagery or characters is what makes people feel that they need to defend it a lot, because a lot of times when people already have an emotional attachment to something, then that means that they're already primed to like it a lot better or to enjoy it just because it has those characters in it, and maybe want to dismiss other criticisms that people may have. And I've had that before with things that I'm emotionally attached to, and there's nothing wrong with being really, really emotionally attached to something like that, but I think that that is the difference between what happened with Ahsoka and Boba Fett and things like that versus what is going on with The Acolyte. This is like no characters that you know from Star Wars, and the tone isn't what you would ever expect from Star Wars. It's completely different in any way. It's like it's being made by people who have no idea what Star Wars is, and based on interviews, that is very, very likely. And I think that that is why everyone dislikes this show and why people are very unified against it, is there's not that sort of nostalgic manipulation going on there, and people just see it for what it is, and it is not a good show. And what it's doing, I think, is it's bringing Star Wars back into the conversation a lot, because I watched Moist Critical's video on it, and he said that he hadn't been paying attention to Star Wars things in years because there was just nothing for him. And I'm like, that made me think about how I was tuned out from Star Wars, and just think how many people in the mainstream public have just abandoned this stuff altogether. Because when you think about it, there hasn't been a Star Wars movie since the rise of Skywalker, and after they had a Star Wars movie a year. And the reason is because Solo bombed, and that told Disney, yeah, a Star Wars movie is not a guaranteed hit. We have to be careful about what we do next. And that started this new trend where for years and years and years, they've had Star Wars movies in development, but none of it has seen the light of day yet because they're not confident in any of these selling. And at this point, I think that there's a chance that Mandalorian movie is probably not even going to happen because the Mandalorian hype has kind of died down, and I don't think that is really going to work out, bringing over the Disney Plus fans into a movie. But after just seeing this much hate for what's going on with Star Wars, I think that they're going to really be thinking about what to do going forward again. Are they really going to want to risk going forward with a movie? Because while they haven't gone forward with any movie since 2019, what they have been doing is just nonstop Disney Plus Star Wars shows. And while some of it has kind of clicked with people, like, even though I wasn't a fan of The Mandalorian, I can't deny that there were people who were fans of it when it first came out. And, some of the Clone Wars stuff people still like. But overall, it's been very negative, and I think that it's only damaged the Star Wars brand and drawn out all the toxicity in the arguments over and over again. And all of that's just continued. I think that it's all damaging in that it would really benefit them to stop making Star Wars content. But what I want to say about this backlash again, and what is really positive about this backlash, I think that people are starting to be more honest about what has happened with Star Wars. I'm seeing a bit of that in the mainstream of that, yeah, it has gone down a really bad path and no one is enjoying this, and this is all just really ridiculous. And the conversation that I really like bringing up that is important is that people are noting, yeah, it is really ridiculous to say that anybody who dislikes these shows is like, I don't know, of this political persuasion or this terrible thing or this or that. Maybe we just don't like the bad Star Wars content, and that, sorry for using the word content, we're trying to move away from that, but people just don't like this bad stuff, like what I've seen from the Acolyte, and I haven't watched it, which is probably why I'm in a better mood than a lot of people. It looks absolutely terrible. Now, there was one article that came out that said that the Rotten Tomatoes score for Acolyte, and this was a Forbes article, said it was embarrassing for the audience, and he was really trying to rationalize it, that it is just from fringe groups on the internet, and I'm like, but you don't have evidence of that. You can point out YouTube thumbnails from people who've been making Star Wars videos for however long like that, but you're basically just looking at a score and saying that you're not going to consider any other point of view and that it must be just from this fringe group, when even the comment section of this Forbes article was from people, just regular viewers, saying, no, this show is terrible and it's getting bad reviews because of that, and that's why it's reviewed even worse than Star Wars Holiday Special. And I gotta say, the Star Wars Holiday Special is a lot more entertaining than I've seen from a lot of Disney Star Wars things lately.
We celebrate a day of peace.
So what I'm enjoying seeing right now is finally some honest conversations about where we're getting away from the deflecting finally, where it's not just everybody who hates this is just a bad person. Like, why is it like a political thing or a moral thing to say that Star Wars of today isn't very good? Star Wars today is not for me. Like, Disney Plus, these Star Wars shows might be high viewed for Disney Plus, but Disney Plus actually has been struggling. It doesn't get that high viewership in general. So these Star Wars Disney Plus shows are niche in and of themselves. Can you imagine how many people of in the mainstream are just tuned out of Star Wars and just do not pay attention to it anymore, as we're seeing, because of how bad this stuff is? And we see it with the merchandise that just doesn't sell anymore. And so that's why it's just like, cut out the nonsense. Finally, we're finally getting unified on this stuff. It's not just stuff that is appealing to fans of a specific character that really want to defend Star Wars. We're all seeing that it has gone down a path where it is unrecognizable now, and that nobody is enjoying this. So now with that in mind, what can happen with Star Wars going forward? Well, unfortunately, we have 5 weeks left of The Acolyte. There's as of the recording of this video, there's going to be a new episode tonight, and I'm sure that is going to cause a whole nother firestorm of conversations about it, because so far the critics have only viewed the first 4 episodes. There are 4 episodes of this series that we don't even know what happens in it yet. And so I'm very curious to see what goes on with that. But I would like to say to the people, because I see people get very emotional about Star Wars and what has happened to it, and I would just like to say, that, first of all, it's okay to feel some emotion because, people have very personal attachments to these properties and what they mean to them, and were these properties there for them at a time in their life, and did they grow up with them? Were these properties or these stories even formative to who they are as they grew up with them? So it's perfectly okay to feel that way about Star Wars and where it's gone, but I would like to give you a little consolation. Don't worry, Star Wars The Acolyte is not going to be considered canon by anyone because, and let me give you an example. When everyone rises up to reject something in a fan base, then that means that thing is not going to be considered canon. This happened with the Batman and Harley Quinn movie by Bruce Timm. This thing was so offensively bad, and when it was released, it was advertised as being a part of the Batman animated series canon, but it was so horrible, so disgusting, so disrespectful to the characters that everybody, literally everyone in the Batman fan base rejected that movie. And no, it was not considered a part of Batman the Animated Series canon, not because anybody behind the scenes said so, but because the fans rejected it so resoundingly. With The Acolyte, what they've done in it has been rejected so resoundingly. That is not going to be considered canon. That is going to be considered this weird offshoot thing that happened with Star Wars in the future. Assuming that Star Wars is still a thing in the future, because that's the big question mark. Like, is Star Wars is the generation that loves Star Wars and that understands it just going to die out and everyone moves on? There's popular things in the past like Tarzan, for example. That used to be huge in the culture, and that isn't anymore because things can die out. So that's a big question about what do you do now that we're kind of in sort of a moment of catharsis where everyone's kind of getting on the same side of what's happened with modern Star Wars. Like, what does Disney do with it? Well, believe it or not, I would reference Inside Out 2, which I just saw twice, and I actually enjoyed it even more on the second time, is you just give people what they want. Like, what I really liked with Inside Out 2 is, even though it's not a perfect film, it just keeps the lore, the world of Inside Out to be what it is, and it expands upon it, but it keeps true to the characters and the themes of what it's supposed to be, and I really related a lot to it, and like that's all you need. You just needed to keep Star Wars consistent in terms of what it's supposed to be, what the characters are supposed to be, what the themes are supposed to be, and the audience, since they've already decided that they like it, will continue to enjoy it. Like, The Acolyte is doing the opposite thing, where it's decided that it's going to crush all of what Star Wars was, where it's going to try to subvert everything that Star Wars was, and say that everything you thought about Star Wars was wrong. Now this is what it is right now, and no one wants that, and that's why people keep getting turned off to these things. You can't have people who aren't Star Wars fans and who maybe even dislike Star Wars working on it. And there are ways to do Star Wars good. There are ways to do Star Wars well again. Like, anything can come back from the dead. It is entirely possible, but you have to get rid of these people who are working on it first and foremost. They can't, these people who have been arguing with the fans the entire time and antagonizing them and continuing to antagonizing them, like, they're not going to make anything good going forward. They're not going to be able to bring people back together. The only thing that they bring people together on is just disliking this new stuff. You need to bring people in who actually care about these series to work on it and make good stuff again. And there are so many people out there who love Star Wars who could be able to do that. It's just the current regime of Lucasfilm that has been there ever since Kathleen Kennedy took over just does not care about the Star Wars universe like that. They constantly want to change things and mold it into what they want it to be rather than what it is supposed to be. And that is why they completely keep failing over and over again. But I am so happy to see that it is not like everyone is unified against Star Wars The Acolyte, and that we can just talk about it openly and just all agree on that, and it doesn't have to be this big controversial thing. We can just say this is bad, and the reason why it's important to say this is bad is so change can actually happen going forward, because these stories actually are important, and the lore of Star Wars is important, and the world that it created, and it's important to keep that together. And if it actually is resurrected from the dead in the future, I do not know, but at least we are all in agreement with what it has become now. But one last thing is, this is all coming from a person who has refused to watch an episode of Star Wars The Acolyte. And because I'm like, I don't know if I can sit through that. I don't know if I want to watch it, but people talking about all the cringe and seeing clips online has actually made me curious about watching it. But I don't know. Do I really want to waste my time watching Star Wars The Acolyte? Do I really want to give Disney Plus the views? I don't know. Can you guys comment below if you guys think that I should watch Star Wars The Acolyte? Let me just see how long an episode is over here. The episodes are 40 minutes each. I don't think I can sit through that. I don't think I could sit through that. Comment below if you think that I should sit through Star Wars The Acolyte, if I should watch any of those episodes. I'm not sure about it. My sister is a huge Star Wars fan. She collects the books, she reads the comics. She does not want to pay attention to anything Disney Star Wars. And the other day when I told her what happened with the witches coven creating children with the Force, I wish I had her face screen captured so I could put it in this video. Unfortunately, I didn't have a camera with me. But anyway, at least we're all united again over Star Wars The Acolyte. The Star Wars fan base is back together. I say, in celebration of the Star Wars fan base being back together, let's all give each other a great big hug. But I think that is all I got for you guys today. Once again, comment below if you think I should watch Star Wars The Acolyte. I don't really want to. What's happening here with Star Wars The Acolyte reminds me of what happened with Marvel and She-Hulk, where it just got so bad that everyone was unified against it. And hopefully that they will finally, hopefully they were having a come to God moment over Star Wars. Like it's really getting that bad, and that we can finally get rid of this madness that has cropped up around it. But let me know in the comments below what you think of all this. Are you feeling this shift in the conversation about Star Wars as I am? Thank you, patrons, as always, for supporting this channel. Once again, if you want to support this channel, you can check out my Patreon and have exclusive videos and updates on my Patreon. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Let me know again if you want to see more Star Wars videos on this channel, and I will see you guys next time.